What if I told you that one decision meant to protect American jobs ended up costing billions and pushing Europe closer to a clever workaround that made it all worse for the United States? Let's unpack this story step by step because it's not just a tale of tariffs. It's about how one economic move spiraled into unexpected consequences and showcased just how interconnected the global economy really is. The United States' view of Europe has never been entirely warm, and the feeling is often mutual. In recent years, tensions have only grown, especially when trade policies became a battleground. Washington now plans to raise tariffs on most EU goods to 20% starting this July. Despite efforts by the European Union to negotiate a settlement, the increase looks set to go ahead. This all harks back to a single decision during the Trump administration. In 2018, President Donald Trump announced tariffs of 25% on imported steel and 10% on aluminum. His goal? To protect American metal workers, revive domestic industries, and put an end to the outsourcing that had drained manufacturing jobs for decades. It was classic America First thinking. Tough talk, protective measures, and a promise to make the country stronger and more self-reliant. At first glance, protecting American steel sounded patriotic and practical. After all, steel and aluminum are vital for national infrastructure and industries from cars to construction. But here's the catch. Steel and aluminum are not used in isolation. They're the raw backbone for a vast number of sectors. Automakers, beer can producers, appliance manufacturers, and even oil drilling companies rely heavily on affordable steel and aluminum. When tariffs made these metals more expensive, the shockwave hit far beyond the steel mills. Suddenly, automakers like Ford were paying significantly more for the materials they use by the ton. Ford warned in 2018 that these tariffs might dent their profits by over $1 billion. For smaller manufacturers, the blow was even harsher. Without massive profit margins to cushion them, many faced layoffs or closures. And what about the jobs? While the steel and aluminum industries did add around 1,000 new jobs thanks to the tariffs, other sectors lost an estimated 75,000 jobs within the first year alone. Protecting a small group came at the expense of a much larger workforce. It was, as some economists put it, like burning down your house to save one room. Then came Europe's response. The European Union didn't take these tariffs lying down. Instead of imposing random counter-tariffs, they launched a targeted strategic retaliation worth about $100 billion. They chose American goods tied to cultural identity and political clout. Bourbon whiskey, Harley-Davidson motorcycles, and iconic Levi's jeans suddenly faced steep European tariffs. Take bourbon. Kentucky distillers, heavily reliant on the European market, watched exports drop by over 30% almost overnight. Harley-Davidson faced the same headache. European buyers, discouraged by higher prices, started buying fewer bikes. To sidestep the tariffs, Harley-Davidson did something that would have seemed unthinkable before. They moved some production overseas. The company that symbolized American freedom and craftsmanship partly left the country to survive the tariff. But the irony was painful. Policies designed to protect American manufacturing pushed a legendary American manufacturer to move jobs abroad. But Europe didn't stop there. They wanted to send a clear message that these weren't just symbolic moves, but real economic punches. The biggest threat targeted Boeing, the giant of American aerospace. The EU hinted at canceling a $43 billion order for Boeing aircraft. That's not just a big number on a balance sheet. It represents thousands of jobs across the supply chain, from engineers and parts suppliers to maintenance crews and local businesses. For Boeing, already under pressure from issues with the 737 MAX aircraft, losing this deal would have been devastating. By putting this order on the chopping block, Europe demonstrated its leverage and reminded the US that global trade is deeply interwoven. Hurt your partners and they can hurt you back, sometimes more cleverly than you expect. But Europe wasn't only playing defense. They were also playing the long game. While the US tangled itself in tariffs and trade disputes, the EU quietly strengthened ties with other partners. Enter CETA, the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement with Canada. CETA slashed almost all tariffs between the EU and Canada. It turned Canada into a convenient gateway for European goods heading into North America. This agreement, which went into force in 2017, gave Europe an alternative route, sidestepping American tariffs and deepening economic ties with a friendly, resource-rich neighbor of the US. The brilliance of CETA is how it hit multiple goals at once. It protected European exports, opened fresh opportunities for Canadian businesses, and encouraged innovation and sustainable development on both sides of the Atlantic. In effect, while the US tried to isolate Europe with trade barriers, the EU simply found a new path around them. The outcome was clear. Trade between Canada and the EU soared after the agreement took effect. European companies could maintain profits without getting tangled in US tariff hikes, and Canada enjoyed an economic boost from playing middleman to European trade flowing toward North America. If Trump's plan was to make Europe pay, the VMAs, reality was almost the opposite. Europe's counter-tariffs, careful targeting of American icons, and use of smart trade deals like CETA turned the tables. While some American sectors saw minor short-term benefits, the broader economy paid a much higher price through lost jobs, strained industries, and shaken international partnerships. Meanwhile, Europe not only weathered the storm, but used it as motivation to diversify its trade relationships and demonstrate its economic power. The EU showed that it could hit back surgically, with counter-tariffs on beloved American symbols like whiskey and motorcycles, and also strategically by threatening deals worth billions and deepening alliances elsewhere. This entire episode underlines a simple truth. In today's global economy, no country is an island. One unilateral move can ripple through countless industries and countries, often creating bigger headaches than the problem it set out to solve. When July comes and Washington's new 20% tariffs on European goods kick in, it will mark yet another chapter in this story. A reminder that protecting an industry with walls and taxes can be far more complicated than slogans and promises make it seem. Europe's response stands as a case study in economic resilience and strategic counterplay. While the US aimed to flex its economic muscles, the EU turned the situation into an opportunity to rethink partnerships, secure its supply chains, and prove that allies pushed too far can push back, and sometimes push forward in new directions altogether. This tariff saga is more than a trade dispute. It's a lesson in the unintended consequences of policy choices and a glimpse at how modern economies find ways to adapt, resist, and sometimes outsmart the very pressure meant to weaken them.